next panel discussion is chaired by the Senior Advisor of Strands, where our panelists will share their insights on CX trends to Metaverse and Multichannel marketing hub, toolkits for powering up on omnichannel dominance. I'd like to welcome first and foremost our moderator to the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Marcello Barricordi, Senior Advisor, Strands. He has 25 years of experience in accelerating growth, especially across multinationals, emerging markets and payments. Marcello currently holds multiple positions as board member in the payments industry, Strands LLC, Al Ansari Financial Services and Enza Group, and is acting as senior advisor for the global management consultancy firm Kearney within the financial service practice. He's going to be joined today by 5 panelists. So first, welcoming on stage, Alex Back, Head of Customer Experience, Transformation and Innovation, Commercial Bank International. Hello and welcome, Alex. A former strategy consultant, Alex is responsible for formulating and delivering the enterprise-level strategy of the bank, for creating and driving the customer experience involvement and transformation agenda, and forming innovative partnerships with a view to diversifying the bank's offerings, target segments, and market niche. They're going to be joined by Vikram Sadhu, Senior Vice President, Group Head of Digital Transformation, Emirates NBD. Hello, Vic. Vic has worked with leading financial institutions in multiple countries across North America and Asia. He's an expert in digital marketing, organizational value creation, technology and operations, strategy, digital transformation and innovation, Lean Six Sigma, agile delivery, and intelligent automation. They are going to be joined by Dongjung Choi, Group Chief Customer Officer, RAK Bank. Dongjung joined RAK Bank in March 2022 and is leading the customer and strategic analytics function, which includes group strategy, brand and marketing, Center of Excellence for Advanced Analytics and Service Excellence, including Customer Claims Unit. We're also welcoming on stage May Malmani, Head of Client Experience, Investbank UAE. May is an experienced CX leader and enthusiastic, responsible for designing and implementing cross-channel customer engagement strategies, launching relationships, deepening programs, and improving retention levels, who have been at the forefront of helping organizations accelerate their transformation to a customer-obsessed culture. And last but not least, joining them on stage, I'm delighted to welcome Ernesto Giralt, Chief Commercial Officer, Strands. Ernesto leads the company's global growth initiatives. 15 years of experience in both strategy consulting and fintech, Ernesto brings a deep understanding of the banking digital transformation strategy and GTM strategies to achieve Strands' growth goals. And here I hand over to you, Marcello.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me well? I sound so. First of all, I also want to thank my esteemed panelists. You can imagine there is a wealth of experience here. Being board member of one of the leading companies that provides AI-based hyper-customization solutions, I quickly learned how executives find this a journey that is exciting, yet is a little bit complex. When we talk about omnichannel experience, I've learned very quickly, and you might agree with me, that providing product and services seamlessly across channel is basically a basic thing these days. It doesn't provide a competitive advantage. What provides competitive advantage going forward is the ability of expanding the breadth and the depth of the engagement that is provided to the customers. And now new tools are emerging to serve this purpose. We're talking about enriched data lakes, hyper-customization, instant marketing, and so on. So I want to drag your attention today on which are the main toolkits that banks, like the one that we have today, are using to make this journey successful. Now, based on the experience that we have developed in the years, I think there are 5 components of this journey. 1, you need to convince executive of a bank of the foundation and the reason why you need to do a big transformation project that entail customer experience. Multiple function has to be believing that this creates value in the future. Second, you need to build a great data set of information that is enriched enough to bring value to the company. Third, you need to make sure that you use the data in a way that is meaningfully driving insight for driving bottom line result. Fourth, when you have all these elements available, you need to be able to present this proposition to your customer. Yes, digitally, but with a human touch. Finally, number 5, you need to be able to measure impact, because these projects, most of the time, do not survive the proof of the bottom line impact. I will use this chapter to engage with my panelists to deep dive a little bit more in each of the points. So we start on the decision-making point. And Vikram, I would like to hear from you how you have been able to build the case for a change, which have been the roadblock and the tools that you have been able to put in place in order to move such a big organization.
All right. Yeah, it's a good question. I think our previous panel did a really good job at also answering some of that. I'm just going to try and take a slightly different approach, more of a customer-first approach in answering that. Also, quick disclaimer, I speak for myself, not for my employer. So these are my personal opinions. Okay, so I'm going to take myself as a user, right? So I think I'm digital native, and a lot of people over here are. Many years ago, I'm going to go back and then I'm going to come here. Many years ago, Netflix really surprised me by telling me what I should watch. And hey, that was good, right? You know, they're thinking about you, they have an algo. You start to study the algo, like, hey, this is personalized. They know what I watch, they know when I watch it, they know how long I watched it, they know how many times I watched it. So good. And then one day on a flight, I discovered Netflix mobile. All right, omni-channel, right? It's not really omni-channel to just have another digital channel, but hey, it was the start. So good experiences. A lot of us have had great experiences with that particular platform. Then something else happened, right? So I was an avid user of Spotify, and one fine day, they made a playlist for me, which was, what did I listen to the most that year? It was a great playlist. So I have good taste in music. It was given to me at the end of the year. It was like a Christmas gift for me, and I thought that this is good. You know, it's getting more personalized. Then there was shopping. So I lived in Toronto, in Canada, and you know we had a Nordstrom, and I don't know who shopped at a Nordstrom, but if we have in the last decade or so, it was a really good experience moving from brick and mortar to digital channels and back seamlessly with the level of personalization you did not expect a typical retailer to have. And then, you know, everyone's favorite, Instagram. For some reason, they always seem to know where to direct me, what should I be watching, what should I be trying to follow, who should I be trying to follow, what could I buy? Now, you know, you're in that environment, right? You're looking at these personalized experiences, you're looking at sort of multi-channel platform capability. And then in those days, let's say a decade back, banking. So that digital native customer, you know, he or she, in general, is still waiting for days to open a bank account, really. You know, you send a payment, you don't know where it is till the time it gets there, or you are calling someone on the phone and waiting for minutes or hours. So that was then. And then something changed in the world of banking and financial services. I saw this, particularly in North America, you know, like a mini revolution for customer experience becoming the focus. A lot of C-suite executives had CX goals in their scorecards for the first time. Terms like omni-channel became a little more common. You started to have a lot of digital proliferation, new mobile apps, end-to-end digital experience became a thing, right? And then fast forward to today. Banking and financial services have done a lot more since then. Like, we have really become better at providing digital experiences, but so have everybody else. So that digital native in me and everybody else is saying, okay, you moved the goalpost from here to here, but everybody's, they were already ahead. They kept moving further ahead. So as a customer, you would imagine that you want your banking financial service provider to do more. You need a frictionless experience. You need it to be hyper-personalized. You need it to be real-time information. And you need it on a day-to-day basis, right? That's what we want as a customer. That's what you want as a customer. Now, when I have to, and if I have to go to anyone and build a business case that should we invest in CX? Should we invest in a broader omnichannel capability, the tools, the platforms out there? I think this is the case. And if this doesn't get it, then I don't think, I don't know what will.
Thanks, Vikram. In your experience, you get success in approving one large project for a multi-year journey, or you end up having single touch point and small approvals?
So I was talking about this the other day to someone. Again, you go back a few years, transformation was a one-time thing, and everyone says that it's not a one-time thing anymore. It isn't really. It isn't, right? The pace of innovation, the pace of evolution of so many different industries around us, including financial services. So look at us, right? You have banking financial services, which was legacy. You have so many new financial technology providers. There's so many new payment enablers. There's just so much more competition from industries who were never into financial services offering financial products. I just don't think that transformation as a term really is a bit old now, because you're not really transforming. It's just continuous improvement and keeps happening.
Great. So Ernesto, based on your global experience, how do you see the banks and the fintechs asking for support in this decision-making process? Because a lot of specialization is required to avoid to reinvent the wheel every time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have to say that when we started over 10 years ago was something much more complex. You really need to prove them that why investing in this, what he was mentioning regarding using AI, ML, machine learning and all that for the hyper-personalization, for the digital journey, customer experience and all that, was something that, was at the beginning, I would say, no? But nowadays, ChatGPT, Instagram, everything that he was mentioning is a reality. So I think that makes us, for us, easier to convince that this is not the future, this is the reality, this is what the market is demanding. Saying that, at Strands, most of us, we have people coming from the financial industry, then we have a lot of data scientists, but also as well a lot of consultants. So here I'm guilty, have to say. So we always go for a business case study first. So we partner with the bank, setting up, doing deep dives. Okay, what are your challenges? What are your goals? And we set, what needs to be done. We set the KPIs, what we want to measure, how we are going to measure, and then we would start. Then we measure positive results, and not just about customer experience, which is very relevant, and engagement, also the impact in the P&L, because you have many things that you can do to leverage on both sides, no? Having a better service for the end customers, but also a very positive impact for the bank. I think this is the best of both worlds.
So far, Vikram and the team has been talking about integration between digital banking and traditional banking. I was wondering from Alex, that has some experience on this front, whether the new channel of Metaverse is myth or the reality. Is this a new omnichannel to be considered element for today, or something that we need to consider in the future? Which is your experience as a bank that I know that you have done a lot of work there?
Yeah, absolutely. So we, as CBI, we opened a branch in the Decentraland Metaverse. And as far as it goes in terms of its utility as a channel, I think it can be debated, to be honest. At the moment, what we've done is use it as a kind of launching pad to position ourselves as digital collaborator and innovator. And what we use it for is those kind of PR-related events as well. And we've filled it currently with information that relates to kind of financial wellness. And that's the angle that we've taken with it. That's the utility that we get from it. I think in the future, as a channel, it probably has some utility in terms of customer experience. If we think about using kind of closed-loop metaverses to create truly digital branches. I think when you see a lot of digital bank branches these days, it's really just a collection of CCDMs, cash deposit machines, and ATMs. To be able to add that human element, even if it is virtual, would have some utility. But in terms of as a channel to be included in omni-channel thinking, the adoption is just not there currently for the metaverse, is what we're seeing. So I would consider it a channel in the same way that it might be a kind of a marketing tool, but I wouldn't consider it to be something where the experience will be as deep or it need to be as continuous and seamless as we might think about our other more traditional channels.
I agree with you, I echo with you. This is also my experience with multiple executives that I engage with. I think there are a lot of other fish to fry before going there. In fact, assuming that we have reached a point in the journey that we have decided we're going to go omni-channel and what omni-channel is, maybe excluding Metaverse for the time being, I think one of the foundational elements is the data that is at the heart of all this process. So rich data, easy way to access data, and are at the foundation of having hyper-customized experience. I would like to hear from you, Mai, your experience on what is the complexity, the lesson learned, the type of data that you are able to capture, or you wish to capture that you haven't been able so far.
Thank you so much, Marcello. You just said, you know what you know, you don't know what you don't know, right? So what we wish to gather is something else. But what we have today, so funny enough, in all banks, we still use this KYC, know your customer. By filling a form, whether it's digital or physical, we're still getting the gender, the date of birth, name, nationality, and then we think we know our customers. Originally, historically, banks used to use the data or collect data from onboarding customers, getting the details from customers while onboarding them, and then moved from onboarding data into the next level of analyzing the transaction history of the customers, and that became another source of data for banks to analyze the customers' behaviors. Some banks use the channels as source of data. Something like if a non-customer uses my ATM, through the bin, I can actually capture the customer's bank, the customer segment, and then start pushing targeted campaigns for that customer. Or through regular transfers, we can know with which bank the customer is dealing and what's the other bank, and then again, we can target the customers. These are all good sources, but these are all internal sources. And then banks started moving into external sources, something like social media, government agencies. So the end target is not to collect data. We do have good source of data. For everything I mentioned is basically for retail customers. For corporate customers, we can talk about reconciliation tools, where again, we can collect data from these tools into knowing more details about the vendors, the payments, all these details. But the end goal is not only to collect data, is to actually know how to use this data. What am I doing about this data? Am I using it to predict analytics for my customers to know what's their behaviors, what's their loyalty? I guess this is what will actually make the difference and will differentiate who are the leaders and who are the normal financial institutions.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree with you. You were making reference of collecting data from third-party in some part of the world, and we are starting to see it also in the region, open banking is a new avenue for capturing information outside the bank. Maybe do you want to, Ernesto, provide some views on which is the global experience on this front?
Sure. I mean, open banking brings a big opportunity, right? And it's all about the data, but it also has a lot of complexity, right? So the end goal is what you do with this data, no? But at the beginning, when you're putting together a lot of different data, no? So from that data, transactional from the bank, metadata, then you can get data from open finance, from third-party providers, from the ERP, and the data is very complex and is not well prepared to use it for the bank, no? So, and also to present that information to the end user. So at the beginning, basically what you have to do is really, once you ingest that data, is to really enrich it, no? Because the ultimate goal is use it, but first you need to understand the data. And I think here at Strands, this is one of our areas of expertise, no? Because if you want to build big things, but the fundamentals are not the right ones, then you won't have adoption, or all the fancy things won't work. And here is all about data, machine learning, and really being able to understand this data and start working from there.
And May, going back to you, in your experience so far, has it been more difficult to build the data, enrich the data, or access the data? I think real-time access of the information is also one of the key elements. And in my experience, this is sometimes clear, written on a paper, but when it comes to do it, it's not easy. So which is your experience so far?
As my experience, I guess the most difficult part is not collecting the data, is not getting the real-time data. There are so many tools to get real-time data, to collect data, but what to do after that? How to analyze it, how to actually use it, to tailor experiences for your customers. This is the hardest part.
Yep, and that's bridge to actually the next point. Assume that now you have a great data lake of information. How to use it is the key element, and I think the ambition of most of the banks that I've been working with is to use this data that is built on the past to predict behaviors for the future, and on which being able to provide offers or engagements that are as focused as the customer of the segment of one, so each single customer. I think, DJ, if you want to give us your experience on this front, it would be great to hear.
Sure. I think there's a lot of use cases when it comes to, what do we do with the data, right? And how do we drive digital transformation as a result of that? At the end of the day, digital transformation is nothing less than being able to collect, store, manage, work on data, and the data moves from one place to another, resulting into a decision, right, in an automated way. So that, I think, at the end of the day is digital transformation. And what is the logic, what is the engine that drives certain decisions, right? One of the decisions we have to make is convincing our customers to buy our products and use the product, right? And I think no organization, especially banks, will be able to grow unless you're able to win in that convincing game, right? As you try to convince your customer to buy and use your product, one of the best ways to be effective but also be efficient in doing so is if you know who is more likely to respond and answer to your convincing than not. Hence comes the guessing game. And I think a more elegant term of that guessing game is predictive analytics, right? So if I know from this room who is more likely to buy or use our product, and if I can actually, instead of trying to convince everyone in this room, actually go to only those people and try to convince them, and then it does a lot of things. One, from the bank's point of view, we end up saving resources, but from the customer's point of view, we end up not disturbing those that don't think that the offer is relevant or personalized to them, right? Hence comes the customer experience point, right? So how good is your guessing game becomes quite an important enabler to be the personalized and relevant sort of bank to your customers. How do we do that? It's basically being able to put together a portfolio of analytics assets that work with the data and then drives personalized solutions. At the end of the day, you'll have machine learning-based, propensity models, next best action models, and so on and so forth. When I was running the Center of Excellence for Strategic Analytics at Barclays, UK, we had about 150 data scientists in that Center of Excellence. We had about 200 machine learning-based propensity models that collected first, second, third-party data real time, and then was able to dynamically curate, feeding into a next best action model, was able to dynamically curate who gets what message, where, when, and how. We would even start thinking about, look, if you put your message on this part of the banner in your mobile banking app versus that part of the banner, for this customer, it would actually be a better sell. So if you have that kind of portfolio of analytics assets that start to guess, okay, which products should be offered to which customers, and what is the tonality, how should you talk to the customer, and so on and so forth. And all of this, thinking logic and algorithm and analytics assets, the portfolio of that has to be fed by data. And then you're able to start to get to hyper-personalization. Again, if you think about who gets what message, where, when, and how, and if that is different, so that even if you're sending the same credit card message, the message that somebody in the back and somebody in the front, is different, or you get a credit card message, but you get a personal loan message, and so on and so forth. I think that's starting to get into hyper-personalization. So, yes, I agree that at the end of the day, what do you do with that data is very important. How you convince your customers to buy and use your product is very important. As you do that, being good at the guessing game in terms of who is likely to take up your product is important. And you would be able to achieve that by building up analytics assets that's powered by data.
Thank you. That's very extensive experience in different parts of the world. So I wanted to hear from Ernesto as well, covering other parts of the world that is not Europe, Middle East, and Asia, maybe US. What is your experience in seeing banks keen to drive hyper-personalization? Which tool do they see you use also?
Yeah. Now I can bring some examples. Like I will start with a bit closer, like with Poland, for example. We work with Credit Agricole, and the first step, as we said on the journey, is all about the data and open banking, big opportunities, but it's complex. So the first exercise was to really understand this data, and once you have this good, accurate, and it's in terms of the coverage, then it's when you start understanding and providing the right messages, the alerts. You start the communication omnichannel to the end user, right? Then the next step, as we see it, is then giving them advice, right? That you are providing them useful functionalities with this data, like with the pattern recognition, like, okay, expected cash flows. Or if, for example, you see that they are increasing their expenditures and not enough incomes, and they are going to have a liquidity problem, then you are there to give them advice. Or if they are overspending in some category, again, that the end user feels that they're taking care of them. Then it's like kind of building the trust, no? In terms of the bank, your position, like, I take care of you. Then I think, in our experience, is when you start, every time that you're giving this advice, you start connecting with them. That I think this is very fundamental. Omnichannel, you have this connection. And in that moment is when, through the hyper-personalization, as DJ was mentioning, to the right persona, through the right channel, the right product, that it's good for them, that they will buy it because they know that you have built this relationship, that is it takes a bit of time in terms of this journey, and it actually is also beneficial for the bank. So it's, I want to sell as a bank, I have this objective, and also I see that this person or this small company, they are eager to take that loan because they need that in terms of the liquidity problem, or by identifying that some too much spend on, for example, in a car. This is an example from the US, right? Spending too much for them selling cars is very important here as well, no? But the credit loans is more relevant even than mortgages, also student loans. So basically, you are overspending in car maintenance. Why don't you buy a new car? And you have an ad hoc credit loan to buy the new car that you want. And this was very effective. This is something that we did in Huntington, very large bank in the USA.
Sounds great. So now in the journey, let's think about, you have a bank that is aligned with the decision that you want to service, to have the dominance in the omnichannel space. You have the data lake and you have the models. Now is the time of building the perfect strategy for serving a very successful multi-channel proposition. Now the question is, how much digital and how much human? How do we keep the same balance of the two? Mai, do you want to start and giving us your view on which are the tricks that you've used in your journey?
Sure. But which one is digital, which one is human? I always say we use digital as an enabler to enable humans to perform their service in the best way. Now, today meeting expectations for customers is not really accepted. Customers, we need to predict their expectations and we need to exceed these expectations. Today we have so many challenges when we actually draft our strategies. Customers' expectations are always changing. The competition is really advanced and the data is there. Again, talking about the data, but how to use it. Now, hyper-personalization is no more a marketing tool only, as most organizations see it. It's something essential when we draft our strategies. And the most ignored fact about hyper-personalization is that we embedded at the end of the customer journey, again, to use it as a marketing tool. What we don't really use is that the hyper-personalization should be embedded in the overall customer journey, end-to-end journey, while onboarding, attracting new customers, selling, upselling, retention, etc. So it should be used in all stages of the journey, not only at the end of the journey. While actually drafting this strategy using the hyper-personalization, again, we need to draw a roadmap. It's not enough only to address customers' needs as per the data that we have, because these needs also changing while implementing. So we need to have a roadmap while implementing this, and we need to know what to personalize, when, where, and how. It's not enough only to draw it on the papers, and then the implementation should be something different. AI, data, analytics are all essential terms when we go for the hyper-personalization strategy, because I guess it's the time to take things personally now.
Thank you. I want to hear from you also, Alex, if you your experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, look, I agree with some of the points that Mai made there. I think it's about kind of that blend, isn't it? I think once you've got your perfect strategy, the guys on the panel have already kind of described gathering that data, making sure you have the right segmentation, and then it's what you do with that data. I think the two interesting points in terms of using the data is reducing friction and retaining that human element, as you mentioned, Marcelo. So I think in terms of reducing friction, it's how you deliver those messages to customers, isn't it? And you don't want to be overwhelming customers with, every twice a day getting a hyper-personalized offer, because that can create friction, right? So you want to make sure that your messaging is prioritized so as not to alienate the customer. But also I think there's a point around kind of brand and psychological friction in terms of the customer's mind, and also for the bank as well, internally, to be effective. Your personalization should be directed at the strategy that you're trying to achieve. So if you're trying to drive revenue, you personalize on price or offers. If you're trying to drive loyalty, maybe you personalize, leaning more towards complementary services or services that will lead to customer stickiness as well. So I think, these are some ways that you can kind of decrease friction, or the various types of friction. I think on the human element, Mike kind of touched on it as well. What we find is it's more difficult for the corporate bank versus our retail bank, for example.
Yeah.
So, it's almost easier to deliver that message to retail customers, or product suggestions that they want, because they can receive them digitally. Oftentimes in the corporate bank, our relationships are maintained face-to-face, obviously. So it's more about kind of empowering the RMs with the right data so that they can deliver those messages to the client face-to-face. It doesn't always have to be off of a screen. But then on the retail side, what I think is quite effective is making sure you're tying in third-party sources of data, for example, social media. So can I say to a newlywed couple, here's a load of mortgage offers, for example, and you get that, you build that trust, and trust is kind of key to making sure that we retain that human element as well.
Great, thank you. So now we are at the last step. So we have the tools, the support, the engagement. Now it's time to measure the results. I guess it's not enough to measure the engagement with certain measures itself, but it's important to measure the bottom line. So which is the experience of Rack Bank on this front, DJ? How do you measure the success? And how make sure you continue to get the resource and the support from the bank?
Yeah, I think measurement is important because you're constantly setting the baseline for continuous improvement. And you can't improve what you don't measure, right? So it's a very important sort of step in the journey. I think there's a question around what do you measure, and then a more important question around what do you do with the measurement output, right? A lot of the times, and I think we've all been there. Look, you would get, the poor MIS team will produce a report and then send it out to 50 people in the bank, and nobody reads the report, right? So the important thing is, again, what do you measure, and then what do you do about it? I think the first thing in terms of what do you measure, I think you have to constantly remind yourself and the organization what's the so what. The so what at the end of the day is you get better customer experience, and that is paramount. And then in the process, you get better revenue, and you also get better with your cost. So these three things, I think, at the end of the day, is what this is all about. And you can start sort of setting very specific enterprise-level KPIs, and then also program and project-level KPIs that are around these three things. Again, customer experience, revenue, and cost. You can start to think about also what is the digital and non-digital experience. And then if you start to think about what's the, for instance, cost per sale, cost to serve, right? When we're talking about cost, for instance, right? And then constantly think about, is your digital beating the non-digital? And if it is, how do you shift from non-digital to digital over time, right? And that's how you create value, right? So I think, I think the previous panel talked about ROI. The important thing is, okay, whether you like or you don't like the ROI numbers being presented to you, what do you do about it, right? And what you do about it is there has to be a champion-challenger model, digital, non-digital, and then make the challenger beat the champion in terms of its performance, and then continuously shift the non-digital part to digital. And that's how I think, for instance, how we win. The other thing about, the other question we had was about, how do you, what do you do with the measurement, right? And at the end of the day, I think, transformation doesn't happen if people don't care. And people have to care at the individual level. they have to care that, okay, it's good for the bank, it's good for the customer, but they have to, at the end of the day, ultimately realize that it's good for me, right? So, and it's very, very natural human reaction to think, what's in it for me? Yeah? So you have to make sure that the performance gets embedded into and is aligned with the success of individuals, and then whether it's at the scorecard level, whether it's in performance dialogues, and so on and so forth, there has to be processes, there has to be culture that's set around that performance measurement and actions.
Thank you. As we are running out of time, I'll take the 30 minutes for just a few key takeaways, and I want to thank before everybody my colleagues. So, omnichannel dominance is a journey. You need to rely on specialized advisory. That's the big suggestion that we have. In building data, data enrichment is a key differentiating factor. You know what you know, you don't know what you don't know, and machine learning is there to serve you. Predicting analytics to use data is not enough to predict. You need to link prediction with data offering to your customer. Real-time engagement is crucial for hyper-customization, but never lose the human touch, so prioritization remains crucial, and measurement is at the heart of staying in the business. Thank you very much for your attention, and thank you to my esteemed colleagues.
Ladies and gentlemen, your moderator Marcello, and thank you to his panelists.